Acura just killed a vehicle that was supposed to define its electric future, and what it's doing instead could tell us where the entire car market is heading next. The Acura RSX wasn't a distant concept. It debuted as a close-to-production prototype in 2025 with a confirmed timeline to roll off an Ohio assembly line in the second half of 2026, built on Honda's own next-generation EV architecture. Then the plan changed. Completely. And what Acura is doing instead could be one of the clearest signals yet of where the entire automobile industry is quietly heading. Because this isn't a story about one canceled SUV. It's a story about EVs versus hybrids, billions of dollars in investment, changing consumer demand, and automakers rethinking what buyers actually want. If you like finding out what's really happening behind automaker announcements, subscribe. Because this industry is changing faster than most buyers realize. To understand why the RSX cancellation matters, you have to understand what Acura's electric strategy looked like before this year. The Acura ZDX was Acura's first real EV, built on a General Motors platform. Borrowed technology while Honda developed something of its own. The RSX was supposed to be that something. Honda's own architecture, Honda's own software, Honda's own manufacturing investment. Real factories in Ohio were being transformed for it. Honda wasn't casually experimenting. Enormous capital was already committed. And that's exactly why what happened next was so surprising. In March of this year, Honda announced it was canceling the RSX along with two other planned US market EVs, the Honda Zero Series SUV and the Honda Zero Series Saloon, both of which had debuted at CES in 2025. All three were deep into development. All three were scheduled for production within the next year or two. And Honda stopped all of them. The financial number is almost hard to say out loud. Honda booked roughly 2.5 trillion yen in losses and expenses tied to this reversal. Approximately $15 to $16 billion at current exchange rates. Not a small course correction, a complete strategic overhaul. Honda cited U.S. tariff policy changes, weakening EV demand in America, the loss of the federal EV tax credit, and intensifying competition in Asian markets. When a company absorbs a $15 billion hit to change direction, it isn't doing so lightly. But Honda didn't suddenly decide electricity was dead. What happened next is much more interesting. Here's where a lot of people get the story wrong. The RSX cancellation is not evidence that EVs are finished. Electric vehicles are still growing globally and remain part of Honda's long-term strategy. The real issue is more complicated and more interesting. Different consumers want different things. Some buyers are ready for a full EV right now. Others are hesitant because of charging infrastructure, range anxiety, cost, or driving patterns that don't work well with today's EV technology. Different parts of the country have different charging networks, different driving distances, different climates. The American car market is not one single market. So the real question Honda, and frankly every major automaker, has been wrestling with is not whether EVs are good technology. It's how much of your company do you bet on one technology before knowing exactly how quickly customers will adopt it? That's a business question, not a technology question. And Honda just answered it in a very specific way. Honda's answer is hybrids, not hybrids instead of EVs. Hybrids as the strategic center for the next several years. A hybrid gives buyers improved fuel efficiency and electric assist with zero dependency on public charging. You still fill up at a gas station. You still drive cross-country without routing around fast chargers. Honda already has deep expertise here. The Accord Hybrid, CR-V Hybrid, and Civic Hybrid are high-volume vehicles that sell because they work. And Honda has now confirmed the next-generation Acura RDX will be built around a two-motor hybrid electric powertrain, a first for the brand in this model line. And that may tell us far more about the future than another electric concept ever could. And if you want more breakdowns like this instead of just repeating manufacturer headlines, hit subscribe. Because decisions like this are going to determine what cars are actually sitting in dealerships a few years from now. And tell me below, if two versions of the same SUV cost roughly the same, would you choose the hybrid or the full EV? Why does the RDX specifically matter? Because it isn't a halo car, it's Acura's volume leader, the nearly 33,000 units sold in the US in 2025. When Acura changes the powertrain on the RDX, that decision reaches far more people than any supercar badge ever could. Compact luxury crossovers are one of the most important segments in the entire American market. If hybrid technology becomes standard in vehicles consumers already want, electrification spreads without asking anyone to make a leap of faith. Toyota figured this out years ago. While competitors made aggressive EV commitments, Toyota kept expanding hybrids. And today, hybrid demand has repeatedly outpaced supply. Honda now appears to be drawing a similar lesson. Maintain multiple technologies, serve multiple types of buyers, and don't get overexposed to any single bet. Then, right in the middle of all this, Acura revealed something else entirely. At Monterey Car Week this month, Acura unveiled the NEXERA Vision, a dramatic two-seat concept making its global debut August 14th at the Quail. Wide, low stance, butterfly doors, active rear spoiler, an ultra-thin lighting signature inspired by the Acura A mark, a driver-focused cockpit with seats integrated into the floor for the lowest possible seating position. Now, this is important. The NEXERA Vision is a concept. Acura has not confirmed it as a production vehicle and has not released powertrain figures. But what Acura has confirmed is that its design language, including the new lighting signature, will carry into production vehicles, beginning with the next-generation RDX Hybrid. New powertrain philosophy. New design philosophy, happening at the same time. And this is where the headline starts making sense. Acura didn't blow up the car market by revealing one concept. The real disruption is the strategy behind it. Before this year, RSX EV on Honda's own platform, aggressive electrification, dedicated EV architecture. Now, RSX canceled, hybrid RDX confirmed, new design direction, and a clear bet on flexibility. The ability to build gasoline, hybrid, and electric vehicles from the same facilities, adjusting based on what customers are actually buying, rather than what analysts predicted years earlier. That flexibility might sound like a footnote. It's not. Traditional factories require enormous investment to retool between different architectures. A facility capable of producing multiple powertrain types lets an automaker respond to real demand instead of predicted demand. Build more EVs if adoption accelerates, more hybrids if that's what buyers want. There are still real costs involved, but the direction Honda is pointing raises a question worth sitting with. What if the winner of the next decade isn't the company that correctly predicts one dominant powertrain, but the company that doesn't need to predict? Honda is not alone in recalibrating. Ford has pulled back on EV production targets while deepening its hybrid lineup. GM has adjusted EV timelines. Volkswagen has faced significant pressure around its EV transition in Europe. Hyundai and Kia are expanding both EV and hybrid lineups simultaneously. Nobody is abandoning electric vehicles, but the pace, the mix, and the strategy are being reconsidered almost everywhere. Acura and Honda are simply one of the most visible examples, partly because the pivot is so dramatic, and partly because a $15 billion loss makes it impossible to ignore. Acura still has plenty to prove. The hybrid RDX needs to deliver both efficiency and the performance Acura buyers expect. The NEXERA Vision's design language needs to translate into production vehicles that actually excite people. None of that is guaranteed. The execution is still ahead of them. So let's come back to the title. Acura blows up the entire car market. That doesn't mean Acura suddenly outsells Toyota or Ford. The meaning is strategic. Acura's moves in 2026 expose one of the biggest questions facing the entire automobile industry. Does the future belong to one dominant powertrain, or to the automakers capable of offering several? A vehicle that was supposed to define Acura's electric future disappeared. In its place, a hybrid strategy, a new design direction, and a bet that flexibility is worth more than certainty. Acura may be a small piece of the American car market, but the decision Honda made behind it could be a preview of one of the biggest shifts coming to the entire industry. So what do you think? Is Honda making the smart move by putting more emphasis on hybrids, or should Acura have continued with the RSX EV? Drop your opinion in the comments below. And if you want to stay ahead of the biggest changes happening across the auto industry, subscribe and turn on notifications. Because this battle between EVs, hybrids, and traditional cars is nowhere near finished.